In this video, I will show you how to deal with quadratic functions. First, to change your quadratic function in the form of completing the square and also finding the coordinate of the turning point, hence sketching the graph for quadratic functions, stating the axis of symmetry, and stating the range of your y value. Okay, let's have a quick look. Okay, when you are given with quadratic functions, first you need to make sure this is in a general format. However, this is not. You need to simplify this. So in order to do the simplifications, first you need to expand the brackets. So x plus 1 squared. Okay, minus. Be reminded when you expand this, put a bracket still because there's a minus sign in front. So be aware of it. It will affect your answer. Okay, so make sure you put a bracket. You have a 4x squared minus, plus. Okay, once you have that, remember to take out the bracket and multiply the -1 to every single term in the brackets. Okay, you see, this has to be negative. Then you simplify it. Okay, so this is your quadratic function in general format. You have your a, you have your b, you have your c. Okay, once we have changed it to a general format, you can't simplify any further. We will start to work on this part. This is what it meant by completing the square form. So if you have not uh, familiar with completing the square, you can watch my previous video on how to do completing the square. So in this case, a few things I want to remind you to do completing the square. First, in order to do your completing the square, the first idea is your a must be 1. Okay, now the a value here is -3. You need to turn it to 1. You can't divide the whole thing with -3 because it's a function, it's not 0, so it will not be balanced. So what you can do is you have to do factorizations. You take it out, everything factorized by 3. So you have x squared plus, okay, from minus become plus, 10 over 3 x plus 8 over 3. This is after you factorize it. You divide every single one, you put it outside. Okay. Once we do the factorizations, remember, I told you, in between bx and c, you are adding in something weird. That is half of b. Okay, your b now is 10 over 3. Your b now is 10 over 3. Half of it, that will be 10 over 3 divided by 2. Or the same as times 1 over 2. Okay, so you should have 5 over 3 as your b. So 5 over 3, 5 over 3. Always remember the first 3 terms will be factorized into a perfect square. Must be start with x, and you are putting in whatever written in the brackets. 5 over 3 square. Okay. Now this is the part where you need to leave it to your calculator. Negative bracket 5 over 3 square plus 8 over 3. What do we have? -1 over 9. Okay, oh, there's a break bracket outside. Don't forget about that. Okay, now we multiply it. Make sure you multiply -3 to this bracket and also to the term at the back. Okay, so you have -3 bracket x plus 5 over 3 square. Okay, how about -3 times -1 over 9? What do you get? You should get 1 over 3, positive 1. Okay, so this is your completing the square format. This is your a x plus p squared plus q. Okay. That's the reason why you need to change to completing the square, is to help you to find the coordinate of the turning point later. This is the working for A lah. Okay. Now that we have completing the square, we look at the second question. Write down the coordinate of the turning point. Okay. Look at the value of A. This is value of A, right? Value of A is -3. Is it a U-shaped or N-shaped graph? When your A is negative. When your A is negative, it's an N-shaped graph. Maximum or minimum point? Maximum point. Okay, so what you need to do is, for B, you need to state your maximum point, the coordinates. So your X and your Y. How do we read the coordinates? Very simple, right? I ask you all to refer to this. Okay, whatever comes after X, plus 5/3. You do the other way, the different sign. If it's plus, you change to minus. So the maximum point is -5/3 for X value, and for the Y value is whatever comes after the brackets. So you have 1/3. This is your maximum point. Okay, just identify from the completing the square. Okay, if this is -2, then this is 2. If this is 4, then this is -4. Remember, different sign. Whatever it is, just write it down for Y. Okay, so we are done with B. Now we look at C. C, sketch the graph for Y equals to fx. Okay, for sketching, let me write again the quadratic equations. Fx equals to -3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Okay, there are a few things you need to know to sketch a graph. I think I need to remind you again. First is the shape. Second are the roots or x-intercept. And the third thing is your y-intercept. And the last thing is your turning point or maximum point in this case. Okay? Okay, first, do we know the shape? Yes, the shape is U shape, N shape because A is -3. Okay, so this is what you can do. You can sketch the graph now. Sketch an N shape. The roots. Okay, in order to find the roots, you need to let your quadratic function equal to 0. So 0 equals to -3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Okay, now that you can leave everything for your calculator to help you to find the roots, the solutions, putting in A, B, C, right? You put in A equals to -3, B equals to -10, and C equals to -8. So you should have x equals to -4/3. Another one will be -2. Always remember, since you are doing cross factorization, so these two brackets must be included. Calculator just to help you to fasten your pace. This is -4/3, so you move 3x plus 4. This is something that you should know before this. This is x plus 2. Okay. Now that you know that there are two x value, meaning there are two roots, meaning there are 2 points of intersections, you can just draw your graph like this. 2 points of intersection, you see? 1 and 2. Okay, you get the idea, you put in the value here. -4/3, -2. So which one is a smaller one? The smaller one on the left. So the smaller one is -2. Okay, -2 is smaller. So on the left, -4/3 is slightly bigger. So it's on the right. Okay. Now that you have the roots, so the shape check, the root check, the y-intercept. The y-intercept, okay, just now the roots are. Okay, the y-intercept is actually touching the y-axis, is the c value. The c value here is -8. Okay, then draw your y-axis. Your y-axis should be a vertical line. Am I right? Okay, this vertical line should be in between here. It doesn't make sense because y-axis, it should be something close to your x equals to 0. Everything is negative here, so it should be somewhere around here. Am I right? Okay, if somewhere around here, this is where you touches the y-axis, and you label this as -8 for y-intercept. Okay, you can extend it if you want to. I extend it, I need to change this one. Change it here. Okay, change it properly. Okay. So now you have the shape, you have the roots, you have the y-intercept. You need to state the maximum point. Do we know the maximum point? We do. These two. So you just have to label this as the maximum point by putting in the coordinates. Okay, so 4 things done. Okay, complete that. Remember to put in, this is for y and this is for x. Okay, this is how you sketch the graph. And then now we look at D. State the equation of axis of symmetry. Okay, equation of axis of symmetry, of course you can go for formula, but is it necessary? I don't think so, because your equation of symmetry will be a vertical line passing through the maximum point, as I told you previously. Passing through the maximum point, wouldn't it, the equation is the same as the x value of the coordinates of maximum point? Yes, it's the same thing. So no working required for equation of axis symmetry. Since you know the maximum point, the x value of maximum point, you just have to state x equals to -5/3. This is the equation of axis of symmetry. If you don't want, of course, you can still use the formula, -b/2a. Eventually, you get the same answer. Okay. And then the E, the range of fx, meaning the range of y. So how far is your y? What is the lowest point of your y? Where's the highest point of your y? Okay, fx is the same as y. So we look at this one. Hey, this is an n-shaped graph. The highest point you can get is 1/3 for y. Am I okay? This is the highest point. How about the lowest point? Do we know the lowest point? We don't know, because this 2n, you go on, it go on forever. You expand, keep expanding, because your x can be infinite. So this y can be expanding. So you don't have a lowest point, but you have a highest point. But you know it cannot be it cannot be greater than this higher point. It cannot be greater than this maximum point. So the maximum value is 1/3. So your range is, since it cannot be, for fxr, it cannot be more than 1/3, right? It cannot go more than 1/3. This is a maximum point already. So you put less than, anything lesser than this, or it could be equal, just just exactly 1/3. Okay, it could be just 1/3 or lesser than that, cannot be more than that, because it's the maximum point already. So this is the range for fx. Okay. Okay. Now I will show you one more. This one. We do the same thing again. Okay. It's a bit different. That's why I'm going to show you. First, you have a quadratic function, just nicely done, nothing to do. We look at 3a. 3a is you need to change this to computing the square form. So you do the part, computing the square, you must remember the steps. First, in order to do computing the square, what is the first thing? Always making sure your a equals to 1. Good. Okay, and you cannot divide everything by 2 because it's not a quadratic equation, it's a function. You can only factorize by putting in 2 in front. So you have x squared minus 5/2x plus 3. Okay, factorizations. Once you do that, put a big brackets. You're going to put something weird between b and c, which is half of the value of b with a square. Okay, look at this. This is your b, yeah? Okay, sometimes don't be confused. Write your b outside first. Your b is -5/2. Then how about b/2? That will be the same as -5/2 multiplied with 1/2. So your b/2 will be -5/4. Okay, so you put -5/4, -5/4. The first 3 terms will be factorized into a perfect square. That's why we call it as completing the square. It will be a big bracket of square. Always start with x and just write whatever written in the brackets. -5/4. So that will be x minus -5/4. Then the last 2 terms, just have to tabulate this using your calculator, including the negative sign. So you have negative bracket negative 5 over 4 bracket square plus 3, you should have 23 over 16. Okay, and you close it. It's not the end because you need to put it in again. So once you put it in, you expand it again without the brackets, then you are done with completing the square. So 2 multiplied 22 times 16, you have 23 over 8. Okay, this is your completing the square formats. Okay, second questions. We are looking for write down the coordinate of the stationary point. Okay, I want to ask you, decide, is it a minimum or maximum point? Look at the value of A, positive. Positive meaning the shape, U shape, minimum point. So the turning point is a minimum point. Is a minimum point. Okay. Then how do we read the x and y value? Okay, just read whatever comes after the x, different sign. If this is minus 5 over 4, then you go for 5 over 4. And whatever comes after the brackets, this is a y value. Okay, this is your minimum point. We are done. Okay, now we go to sketching graph. Sketching graph, so I write the quadratic function one more time. Okay, 4 things: the shape, the roots, the y-intercept, and your minimum point in this case. Okay. The shape is a U shape because your A is 2. The roots, if you want to find the roots, make sure you let this equals to 0. So you have 0 equals to 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay. You can solve this using your calculator, but eventually you'll face one problem. You can try and see. Okay, you have A equals to 2, negative 5 by B, and C is 6. Okay, so in your calculator, it will show something like this. 5 over 4 plus square root 23 over 4 I. Whenever you have the symbol of I, meaning it's not the real roots, is the imaginary roots. Imaginary roots meaning there are no roots, meaning there are no intersections. Okay, so whenever you get this from your calculator, there's an I. I want you to know, this is what you should have in your mind visualizations. You know that this is your quadratic functions. What do I mean by there's no roots? No roots meaning there's no intersections. Meaning it's not 2 points of intersection like this, not just one, but there's no intersections. Meaning there's no interceptions. So if there's no intersection, there's no roots. So since there are no roots, do you need to state the roots? You don't have to. There's no roots. Okay? So there's no roots, you don't have to find it anymore. Just ignore it. Don't put roots at all. Okay, so since you have I, you don't have to write anything. There's no roots, you have check it. Okay, how about another way to check it whether there's roots or not? Yes, you can check whether there are roots or not using completing the square formats. Okay, this is my completing the square, right? Okay, I know that if I don't want to solve using cross factorization, I want to show you. How about I have fx equals to 2 bracket x minus 5 over 4 squared plus 23 over 8 squared. In order to find roots, your fx must be 0, so I let it be 0, and I move one by one. Which one should I move? Definitely this one first. So I have 0 minus 23 over 8. Then times 1 over 2. Then you have a situation. You have a square. You're going to move a square. You are square root of a negative value. So when you get this in your calculator, you just somehow cannot get the answer. Alright. When you square root a negative value, it's a MAC error. So meaning there are no roots. Okay, another way to show you there's no roots. Once to show you there's no roots, you don't have to show everything. You just have to ignore it, there's no roots. So you continue with your y-intercept. The y-intercept is C. So your C is 6. The last one, minimum point, is 4 over 5. 5 over 4, I'm sorry. Okay, now you have everything, you can sketch your graph. So draw the quadratic functions. Okay, since there are no roots, you just have to draw your axis above the x-axis. C is 6, so there must be a y-axis. Fx, x, this one is 6, okay? What else? The minimum point, since you can't label the roots, you only label these two. So this is 5 over 4 and 23 over 8. How do I know my y-axis is on the left-hand side and not in the middle and not in the right? Because the minimum point is 5 over 4. So the minimum point is a positive one. So definitely 0 is here. So this is where your y-axis lies on. Okay, so you need to check logically where is your minimum point. And this is your graph lah. Sketch your graph. Okay, nothing else. Okay, now we go for D. D is to state the equation of this symmetry. I told you, equation of axis of symmetry is just as the same as the x value of the minimum point, because we are talking about the equation of this is passing through the x value. So same thing, x equals to 5 over 4 is your answer. And then the last one, range of fx, highest it can go or lowest it can go. What's the range? Okay, since this is a minimum point, we can only know what is the lowest point you can get. We don't know what is the highest point you can get because it goes on the two ends. We can only know the lowest point. The lowest point is the x value of the minimum point, 23 over 8. So it cannot be lower than that. It can be more than that. Cannot be lower than that. It can be more than that. Then your answer is fx cannot be lower. So it must be more than 23 over 8. Or it could be just at the lowest point equal. So fx more than equal 23 over 8. Okay? Thank you.